As I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, I tend towards introversion a little more than many leaders do. And I'm not particularly natural when it comes to networking. But yet, speaking and writing and podcasting to large groups is pretty much my zone of genius. Weird, right? Well, just going by all the surveys that claim that most people are more scared of public speaking than they are of death, I suspect that a lot of you listening to this podcast get butterflies in your tummy every time you have to give a presentation to your board, your donors, or other key stakeholders. So today, I'm going to share the 3 things you can do to become a better and more confident public speaker. And I'll give you a kind leadership challenge to help you take some baby steps out of your comfort zone this week. Welcome to the Kind Leadership Challenge, where I present short, actionable challenges that empower educational leaders like you to build a better world without burning out. I'm Dr. Sarah Clark, founder of the Kind Leadership Guild, where I use my PhD in higher ed leadership and nearly 2 decades of experience in academic libraries to advise a growing community of leaders who are ready to transform their school or library's fear, confusion, and drama into confidence, clarity, and trust. Kind leadership's pretty simple, but it's rarely easy. So if you're up for a challenge, stick around to learn how to create a legacy that will strengthen your community long after you're gone. First, I want to share some good news with those of you who are nervous about giving your next presentation. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or have gone to kindleadershipchallenge.com/next to get the next steps checklist and sign up for my daily leadership pick-me-ups, you already have most of the tools you need to handle any public speaking situation. Because here's the secret. A presentation is just another type of leadership challenge. And for that reason, many of the items on the next steps checklist also work great for planning your next presentation or speech. A few parts of the checklist I think are the most relevant here are defining the problem your presentation is meant to solve and planning out your talking points in advance so you know what you will hit and in what order. I also want to talk about another item on the checklist. Separating the facts of a situation from the stories being told about it. Because when it comes to public speaking, there can be a deeper type of story at play. The first level of facts versus story when it comes to public speaking is the same as any other leadership challenge. When planning a presentation or speech, you need to define the unarguable facts of a situation, so you can distinguish them from the possibly inaccurate stories you and the other people involved in the situation have created to make sense of those facts. However, for a lot of people, another story, a second story, starts playing in their heads as soon as they learn they will have to stand up and speak before an unfamiliar audience. And that story says that public speaking is scary and they're not good at it. The great news is that, like any other inaccurate story, it loses its power once it's disproven by the facts. So, how do you start proving to yourself that you can become a skilled, confident public speaker? Practice. Specifically, frequent, low-stakes practice. Confidence isn't a requirement to speak well, but it's strengthened by experiences of speaking well. So get up in front of people you know and talk. It doesn't have to be fancy, and in fact, it shouldn't be. For instance, at my place of work, a Catholic university, we start many of our team meetings with a reflection. Usually it's a reading of some sort, sometimes religious, but more often something from fiction or pop culture that reinforces our school's mission and core values. And different folks volunteered to do the reflection for each meeting. If I were wanting to strengthen my comfort level with public speaking, I'd volunteer to do the reflection a time or two. Now, Your school or library may not go in for an opening reflection, but perhaps they need someone to read announcements or introduce a guest speaker, or maybe just talk about a new project at a staff meeting instead of sending an email. Try some small things like that to build up your confidence. In addition, there are thousands of formal and informal ways you can build up your speaking confidence and skills outside of work. Toastmasters is a common suggestion, and I actually found it pretty useful and fun back when I joined a club right out of college. You can also take a leadership position in another club or group that suits your interest. And if you want to get a little bit more techie, try a little live stream on one of your social media pages, or even podcasting or YouTube. And now that I think of it, there's probably a whole episode in how my 10 years of podcasting has made me a better and kinder leader, but we'll save that for another week. Finally, I'm going to repeat something I told y'all way back in episode 1 of this podcast. Finished is better than fabulous. If you want to improve your confidence and skill as a presenter, your goal is not to be a perfect public speaker. Your goal is to be a frequent public speaker. You will probably do better than you expect to do, but you will also stumble and struggle as you climb your learning curve. And to this day, I flop in front of an audience or release a dud podcast episode every so often. And I consider myself a pretty natural public speaker. You will struggle. That's how you learn. So here's your challenge for this week. Remember that confidence is a result of a success, not a prerequisite for success. So get out there and start presenting. Have a plan, find a low-stakes situation, and don't worry about being perfect. Get some reps in, get a little more comfortable, and then share how it went with me or with a friend. If you want to get notified every time there's a new episode, or have a colleague who might find these challenges useful, head over to kindleadershipchallenge.com to learn more and subscribe to the show via email or your favorite podcast app. Never doubt that day by day, you're building a better world, even if you can't see it yet. So until next time, stay kind now. Oh, one last thing. If you're ready to take on this week's challenge, but not sure how to start, head over to kindleadershipchallenge.com/next to download the Next Steps checklist.